But you have to be choishesh to it one time. That means a half a year later, you're going to have to be choishesh to it. What does that mean? He explains right away, when a half a year passes, that day is going to come. Since it was a half a year between, that day is going to come, so you will be choishesh to one aina. You will choishesh to one aina. Yeah, that is the first part of the Sif. The Alter Rebbe points out to you, well, first of all, I just want to point out one short thing. There's a shach over here, points out right away that she's choishesh, the Alter Rebbe brings it also, that she's choishesh to Veses HaChodesh. Means a month later, if she saw on Tesvav Tishrei, and then she's not going to see again till Tesvav Nisan, but really she has to be choishesh for Tesvav Cheshvan, and if she's going to see again Tesvav Nisan, which is a half a year later, she's going to have to be choishesh for Yom HaChodesh, which is Tesvav Iyar, and obviously be choishesh next time afterwards. It means when she saw Tesvav Tishrei, she's only choishesh Tesvav Cheshvan, so you don't know what it is. If she then saw Tesvav Nisan, Machmas again, then it creates two chashashas. First of all, Tesvav Iyar, and then for it any more at all. You know, that's what Alter Rebbe writes in the beginning. But if they were keveya it, she was keveya, which is what the Mechaber writes the second half of the Siman. The Mechaber writes, what happens if she's keveya? Kova Veses Gimel Zimni Veses Shove. Means she saw three sets of 3 times, 3 equal times. Then she is mutter between Veses to Veses, between one and the next one. But she is Aser every half a year thereafter until she is Oikeret. What Oikeret means, we'll see in a second. But it's based on understanding what kind of Veses we're talking about over here. So there's 2 main, we'll call them machlokes, and ways of understanding over here. First of all, what's this Veses all about, this half a year Veses? How do we define this Veses? What causes it? And also, based on that, what the Akira is going to be able to be Akira Veses. Alter Rebbe explains in Sif Nun Aleph. Sifkot Nun Aleph. Says, what is this Veses? So first of all, we already know what the Alter Rebbe holds about Rouah Machmas Tashmish Bichlal, which that is written much earlier, how the Alter Rebbe defines Rouah Machmas Tashmish. So I'll tell you. Where is it? Just want to read it inside, it's better than saying it about Peh. It's an earlier, in the previous Sif, in Sif Katan Lametes, where, well, in Sif Yud, the previous Sif, where the Alter Rebbe, where the Mechaber writes, if she sees one time Machmas Tashmish, she's allowed to be with her husband again. But then if she sees 3 times in a similar scenario, it will be a problem of Rouah Machmas Tashmish. And if she skips once in between, she's no longer a problem. So the Alter Rebbe explains, what is this Rouah Machmas Tashmish? Why is it that it's a why is it that we're choishesh, that we're only choishesh, that we're not choishesh to be keveya? So Alter Rebbe explains in Sifkot Lametes on Sif Yud, says that she saw one time, she doesn't have to be choishesh for Rouah Machmas Tashmish again, so she just has to go to mikveh and everything is fine. But what is she choishesh to? Alter Rebbe explains, she is choishesh l'mei HaChodesh. That means if she saw Machmas Tashmish once, she's choishesh l'mei HaChodesh, which is what I just mentioned now. Shema Yom HaChodesh Goyim Lo Liros Machmas Tashmish could be it's the day of the month that causes this Machmas Tashmish. He has to make sure that it's not that reason. And she has to separate on that day. Like what? Kedin Isha Haroya Al Yidei Mikrim She'iru Begufa. So what's this Roya Machmas Tashmish? What is it defined? What is it compared to? It could either be compared to the first one, Isha Haroya Al Yidei Mikrim She'iru Begufa. Something which happened in the body which causes a re'iyah to come. So that's one way of looking at it. Consider it a vesis based on mikrim she'iru begufa. Or it might be achilas dvarim amcham kashum u'batzel, or something that she ate which caused this re'iyah machmas tashmish to come. Or action that she did. Oishara sa'idei oines kikfitza v'kayetze b'zeh. Or she saw like a kvitza. It means there's three ways of understanding what Roya Machmas Tashmish, what the Svar of Roya Machmas Tashmish is, what kind of veses, so to speak, it is, and all three have to be chayshish for the day of the month afterwards. However, the Alter Rebbe right away tells you, but veses aflog you don't have to. Yeah, unless you have 2 times Machmas Tashmish. So based on Machmas Tashmish, yesh b'neim aflog, then you have to be chayshish like it's going to be in Sa'if Yud Aleph, which is what we're discussing now. So in Sif Yud Aleph we do have that. The first time we're not chayshish to Aflaga, but we have to be chayshish to Chodesh the next month, like we mentioned. But to Aflaga we don't have to be chayshish until 2 times. So what happens when the second time comes and she is chayshish? Now she has to be chayshish a certain amount of time later. What kind of Aflaga does it become? What kind of veses does it become now? Defines that veses hamurkov becomes a combined veses. Has 2 elements to this veses. It's machmas tashmish, which machmas tashmish we said before it could be either mikra shira begufa or achilas varim charifim or a ma'isa that she did together with roya machmas tashmish and roya machmas tashmish together with a floga. So now when is going to be the next one to be oikered? We're going to see. Based on this, to be able to oiker a murkav, you have to be able to oiker both things together also. That's what Alter Rebbe mentions later. But it's not either or. We don't say that it's mitzad chodesh. However, yesh hefresh b'nein, Alter Rebbe says there is a difference between a veses, a regular veses amurkov. He says veses amurkov, that's what we're talking about over here, flog of a tashmish. Eina chosheshes lo imkin lo rasa ben sayim klal. To be able to establish this, what the Mechaber is talking about over here, that she saw on Tes Vav Tishrei, let's say, Machmas Tashmish, and then she saw again Tes Vav Nisan Machmas Tashmish, we're talking about that she did not see any re'iyas whatsoever between now and then. There are other shittas, other achranim, which hold no, that if she did see between now and then a regular period, it just wasn't Machmas Tashmish, the Machmas Tashmish still stays. But according to the simple reading of the Alter Rebbe, it's not so. To be able to establish this half a year gap, as has to be that there's absolutely nothing in between. There was Machmas Tashmish Tesvav Tishrei, then she did not see Machmas Tashmish the whole 6 months, but she was with her husband. She did not see Machmas Tashmish, she did not see anything at all. There was no period whatsoever. Then came a next one, so then it became a murkav, these 2 together. Otherwise, you don't have a murkav. Otherwise, you just have regular periods, and you don't know. Maybe it caused it for whatever reason, just like a regular vessel. She saw once, and it passed, and that was it. It was must have been something off. We can't be kiveh anything based on it. To be able to kiveh, you have to have both combined. But if it would be murkav with a veses achodesh and aflaga, we are choishish if one pav. We are choishish. It's different than this kind of veses. V'oidiyesh b'neim, another difference. Murkav ma'aflaga. If you have this one that's murkav together with a haflaga, and she did not see anything in between, so you have a very long 6-month haflaga, and machmas tashmish she saw again. So if it was nikba 3 times, imigia yoimoy ve'ovra ve'shimsha ve'loi rasa, shuv einei cheshesh le'olam. if that day passed, Tesvav Tishrei, whatever, after 3 times, the next one came, and she Avra v'Shimsha, then, and there was no blood then, there was no Machmas Tashmish then, she's no longer Choishesh, like every Aflaga that passed. And the only time she's going to be Choishesh is, it means it's put on pause, like the other Aflagas, and the only time it's going to be Choishesh, if you're going to see again, then you restart, then you have to be Choishesh again until and then she's going to have to start counting from this new Re'iyah again. So now, based on this is the idea that the Murkav over here is a Haflaga with a Re'iyah Machmas Tashmish and not a Chodesh or some other Vesas Murkav with Tashmish. Based on that, could you be Oiker such a thing? You have to be Oiker both together. So Alter Rebbe tells you right away what Oiker means over here in Nun Beis. You have to pass that she Avra v'Shimsha boy. Avra means she did the wrong thing, v'Shimsha, and she was with her husband, and then she didn't see. So now the time has that passed with Shimsha, and there was no Re'iyah Machmas Tashmish. So you were Oikeret, and that has to happen 3 times. The only way you could be Oikeret is the way you are Kiveyat. So if a woman is not going to be Avra, she's not going to do any Averis, then this remains on her calendar until something else will be Oikeret. Huh? No, because we don't know what it is. It's a Murkav. You only solve one. But she has a bunch of in between, so you're not Kiveya anything. You Kiveya once every 6 months. She sees you're going to do Sheferes during that. Yeah, in the 6th month, maybe. So it doesn't tell you over here the Eitzer Sheferes. So, but if you hold that it's a Murkav Mitad Yom HaChodesh, that the Yom HaChodesh caused it, that's why she saw Tesvav Tishrei, and she saw Tesvav Nisan, and she saw Tesvav Tishrei. It's not a Murkav Me'aflaga. It's a Murkav from a Chodesh together with Re'iyah Machmas Tashmish. Then first of all, you only need 3 times to be Kaveh, because Aflaga you need 4 times. And second of all, also to be Oikeret is going to be harder than that, than in this way. But the Rebbe doesn't hold that it's based on the Chodesh, it's based on Haflaga. That is regarding Sif Yud Aleph. I'm going to move to Sif Yud Gimel, the next topic I want to talk about. Dam Besulim, one of the, call it harder topics that come across the Rabbanim, and there's always questions. Everything happens today. It says about, just a quick akdama, it says that Beilas Mitzvah, this is Bayil Peiresh, and she goes to mikveh and everything, and then she can continue being with her husband. She sees blood the first time. The question is, when do we start counting it as Re'iyah Machmas Tashmish rather than being considered Dam Besulim? So the Mechaber tells you very simple, that La'olam Machzakinon Shehem Dam Besulim, forever we keep it as Dam Besulim, Ad Shetashamish Pam Achas V'lo Tire Dam Machmas Tashmish. Until one time passes, and there's no blood. If one time passes without any blood, she's no longer in the category of Dam Besulim, and she is now like every other woman, and if she's going to again see Machmas Tashmish, she is going to have to start counting, like that's going to start counting towards the Re'iyah Machmas Tashmish and not towards the Dam Besulim. The Ramah right away adds over there, that even if she did not stop seeing blood, still, if she has pain, if she does not have pain anymore, then she is no longer in the category of Dam Besulim, and she moves on to the category of a regular woman. What the Mechaber doesn't tell you is whether you need to have, what happens if there's no blood and there is pain. And the Ramah also doesn't tell you what happens if there's no blood and there is pain. All that I'm telling you is that if there is blood, but there is no more pain, it already starts counting as Rea Machmas Tashmish. And the Mechaber says, as long as there's blood, once the blood stops, it's over. So comes the Alter Rebbe and has an explanation. There's an Alter Rebbe Sifkot Nun Hey, there's a Kuntersach, and there's a Tzemach Tzedek which asks a question on the Alter Rebbe. The introduction to the Tzemach Tzedek, to the Alter Rebbe Sifkot Nun Hey, starts by telling you that according to the Mishnah, Ein Teilin Bepsulim Ele Laila Ha'alef Begeres Im L'ras Adam V'Sevia V'Im Ras V'Sevia Ein Teilin B'Bia Alef Bilvad U'Benayra Adad Leilas V'Leyoyser. Regarding Dam Besulim, the Gemara says you can only be Teile first night, first Bia, first 4 nights, depending on the situation. But the Chachamim were Machmir, the Gemara, that Boil Bilas Mitzvah Pirish. Yeah, one first Beilu Pirish, and she goes to Mikveh. We're not Teile that blood is dam. We are Teile that is dam Besulim, but we don't say that she's Muteres to continue being with her husband. That's what the Gemara says. So the question that comes up is, what's the difference over here? Why over here when are we Teile? The Gemara says 1 night. So what happens over here? We say until she stops seeing blood, until she stops feeling pain. So he says that's only, Alter Rebbe first clarifies to you, this is only le'inyan shaloi lachzik v'rei machmas tashmish. This of lo yisrael bay lo yilom mislim v'sul kazon shelo kol besul. The only time we are Teile in besulim, as long as there is pain or blood, whichever way we're going to look at it, we're going to see soon exactly what the definition is. That's only relevant to Rea Machmas Tashmish. Rea Machmas Tashmish, we don't start counting until we have clarity that the besulim are over. But we are counting when it comes, she obviously can't be with her husband until she goes Shiva Nekiyim and have Sektara Shiva Nekiyim and Mikveh. And how long are we Teile? So it gives you a definition. Dahainu, what's Kol Zman Shalei Kol Besuleho? Dahainu, Kol Zman Shemargeshes Tzar U'Ke'ev K'tzas. As long as there is a certain, at least a little bit of pain, Kederech HaBesulis Shalei Kol Besuleihen, like the Besulis, that the Besulim are not finished yet. K'moi Shekosav Ramo Ba'agor, as the Ramo writes in Agor. That's what Alter Rebbe understands. The Ramo only says if there is no pain. Alter Rebbe understood from it, as long as there is even a little bit of pain, as long as that pain continues, it still all falls into the category of Dam Besulim and does not start for Rea Machmas Tashmish. Quick point, L'may Nafkamina, is when can you do the 3 b'dikas to solve the Rea Machmas Tashmish? It will only happen after you're done with Dam Besulim, after you're done with this pain. Why is this? Because as long as there is pain, in this scenario, it's considered like a makkah. It's a makkah mitzi adam. There's no bigger makkah than this. And we already mentioned from what the Tzemach Tzedek brought mentioned the previous shiur, the previous shiurim, that the Tzemach Tzedek brings from the tshuva over there that about a basula. There could even be up to a year, it could be even a year long that there's pain, and it's still not going to be counted towards Rea Machmas Tashmish. As long as that original pain is still there. We discussed it in relevance to a woman that gave birth, but the proof that was brought to tshuvas is from this tshuva about Dam Besulim. So as long as you have that pain, it's still considered as Dam Besulim. So obviously if she sees blood, she's going to have to go to mikveh. But if she does not see blood, and she still has pain, then let's say she's going to see blood again, Machmas Tashmish, there's still the same pain as there from the beginning, we still counted as Lekolu Besulahu. So the only thing, so he explains, so what were the Chachamim Machmir? The Chachamim Machmir regarding Shiva was that they say 1 night, the Chachamim Machmir regarding Shiva Nakim and Tvila, that you can't say that it's Dam Besulim, that is Dam Toihar, and she can continue being with her husband. No, for that she still needs Shiva Nakim. And why were we Machmir more by a Besula than by a Makkah? By a Makkah we say if we know that there's a Makkah, she does not have to go to mikveh every time she sees blood. So he says, Because Besulim ultimately is going to be finished. It's not there forever. Besulim is a temporary thing. This idea is from the Rashba, that the Besulim is a temporary thing, and therefore it's different than a Makkah. By a Makkah it's Shaykh that Tasrena al-Yidei Zel Olam. If you're going to tell her every time that she sees blood that she's going to be, she has to go to mikveh, she becomes Asr forever. But that's the difference between the Makkah and Dam Besulim. But when it comes to Lo Yisrael Baila, we have the same Yisod by both by Makkah and by Dam Besulim. That as long as the Makkah was not cured, she's still in that category and she doesn't become a Surah Baila, but she still has to do Shiva Nikim. But im ein lo tsar klal, if she doesn't have any, Al-Terba concludes, if she does not have any pain at all, still in all, Fart the Mishnah tells you that the first night is considered Dam Besulim, or the first bia, the first night. In the Yisrael Baila Machmas Tashmish Gimel Palmir Tzufim, still that first one does not count towards the three for Reya Machmas Tashmish, because we can't be machmir more than the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells you first night is not in the Cheshbon, so therefore we can't be machmir more than that. Alter Rebbe in Kunter Sachrin brings to you where he gets this idea from. The Lashon of the Kunter Sachrin, go through it. He says, Kein Kosav Abis Yosef, this idea that we're going based on combination of pain and blood, this is what the Abis Yosef writes. The Maram Padva does have a different opinion than the. He says that there's this difference that we're differentiating between Dam Besulim, between Tvila, and Shiva Nikim and Tvila, and Reya Machmas Tashmish. The Reya Machmas Tashmish were Meiko as long as there's pain, and Shiva Nikim were not. That's the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef makes this differentiation. However, you have a tshuva of Maram Padva. Maram Padva tells you that even when you are toile in Dam Besulim, still ochin roila moire chulu, the Rav still has to start asking questions if she had pain. Maybe she does not have any pain at all. And if she does not have any pain at all, even though she sees blood, imkein choisa, then that means that the makkah was cured already. Mevur Hashem the Svirele Misvaret, it's clear that the way the Maram Padva understands it is that all the shiurim that the Chachamim mentioned, whether it's the first night or not, all the things, all what's mentioned over there is no difference between one and the other. All these apply the Margeshes Tzar V'Kev, only if there is Tzar V'Kev. If there is no Tzar V'Kev, we know as a fact that there is no more Makkah, and therefore even on the first night, even for everything else, we still count as Reya Machmas Tashmish, and even on the first night we're going, and she becomes just like a regular woman, and we do not make the differentiation. She does become a Surah L'Baila, and we don't make the differentiation between Shiva Nikim and that. And this is Nahafech Umashakos and Masas Binyamin. The Masas Binyamin writes exactly the opposite. Shekol HaShiurim and Be'eina Margeshes Dafka. That all what the Chachamim said, the first night, the first 4 nights, is all when she does not feel any pain at all. Because if she does feel pain, then we continue, she's considered, as long as she feels pain, she is considered in that category of Dam Besulim, and there is no difference between Shiva Nikim and Reya Machmas Tashmish. So Maram Padva is one extreme. Both of them hold the same idea, that there's no difference between this. They don't agree of this differentiation between Shiva Nikim and Reya Machmas Tashmish. Both of them hold that both of them are the same. The question is that both of them apply when there is no pain whatsoever. Both of them apply when there is pain, only when there is pain. Now, Alter Rebbe says this is a big question on the Masas Binyamin. Why? Why are we machmer in the scenario of margeshes? When she feels pain, when she feels pain, we still say, Boyelu Poirish. Why does she have to be Poirish? If she feels pain, she doesn't have to be Poirish. According to the Svara of the Masas Binyamin, that as long as there's pain, none of these Shiurim apply, then why does she have to be Poirish the first night? The first night should also not be Poirish. We know for sure that it's a Makkah. So that's the first point. Also, we have another problem. That the Rashba makes his differentiation between a Makkah and a Besula. And he says that by a Makkah we were Makel because it's permanent. It could be permanent. But Loi Besulim we're not Makel because the Isur Shah. Because temporary is going to obviously cure. So we don't say that she could become, that she remains Tahira. Rather, we just say maybe she's not Re'eh Machmas Tashmish, but she does not remain Tahira. Only by Makkah we say she remains Tahira. But by Besulim we say it's a Isur Shah. It's going to pass. So basically, based on this Rashba, that he makes this differentiation between Makkah and Besulim, the Besulim is Isur Shah, and that's why we keep the din, Mashenkin, in a Makkah where Makel, more, that she does not become Tameh. Mevur, Midvar of Behedya, that even Besulim are similar to a Makkah, that means that she does feel Tzar Ukev. And still in all, he compares it to Makkah, which means there is Tzar Ukev. Still in all, we're Machmer by Besulim. Because it's a Isur Shah, and we're Machmer even more than the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells you only the first night. The Kol Shekein Bedina Shani b'Mishnah Shechmiru b'Yafilu b'Margeshes. And for sure, when we're talking about what's written in the Mishnah, that over there we are Machmer even by when she feels pain. Even when she feels pain, we're still Machmer the first night. So obviously, based on all these Rishonim, it's clear that you can't say they're both the same, like the Maran Pazwa or like the Masas Binyamin. Rather, we have to make a differentiation. What the Mishnah is talking about is Tumas Adam. What we're talking about is Roueh Machmas Tashmish. And by Roueh Machmas Tashmish, that the Mishnah is not talking about it, we are Mekel, and by Dam, that's what the Mishnah is talking about, we are Machmer, just like the Bis Yosef wrote. And that's what Alter Rebbe follows the Bis Yosef, and does not follow the other two opinions. Yeah, that is the one part of the Kuntes Achar. Now we have a short tshuva of the Tzemach Tzedek, Siman Shin Yud Aleph. It's in page 288 in your book. Yeah, actually, before we go, there's one more point. No, I forgot to say one more point. The Kuntes Achar also, after that, Rebbe continues that he asks another question in the Masas Binyamin, and then he says, "Elavada ya'em asiri darkoi." Shekol Shiurei HaMishnah Medivri Soifrim. Everything that the Mishnah is talking about is Midirabanan. Lasi Siag L'Torah. Midiraisa B'Kula Nachatichya Mako. Midiraisa, all these Shiurim, also she's not Tamei until the Makkah cures itself. Mashikos Rashba, like the Rashba wrote. Rosh. Shenachal Makkah G'dei L'Mizul. There's no bigger Makkah than Besulim. Elo D'Rabanan Nechmiru. Mishum shebilas mitzvah lakoil mesura kmoi shekosav Rosh. Mishum shu isur shok shekosav Rashba. The only time we're machmer by besulim for that she has to go to mikveh is either because it's mesurim lakoil, or because it's a isur shah. It's going to move. And being that regardless, both of these are only the Rabbanan, that's why we are mekel. We're mekel as it refers to the Isser of Roueh Machmas Tashmish. The Tzemach Tzedek comes and says, brings to you what the Alter Rebbe writes. Siman Shin Yud Aleph, he says, "Ayin b'Shulchan Aruch shel Rabbeinu, Sifkot Nun Hey, Shedaiti ka Bis Yosef." He follows the Bis Yosef. V'abach When it comes to Rea Machmas Tashmish, we have to be makel more than what the Mishnah says. Okay, the Priya Shnam Bekunta Sachen, Alter Rebbe explains that the reason why we're makel more by the idea of Rea Machmas Tashmish when it comes to Besula is because it's midrabanan. It's only a siag v'lei midiraisa. However, the Alter Rebbe is choylek, the Beis Yosef and the Bach don't agree on this in the Kolel. The Beis Yosef says only when she's mageshes tzar v'keiv, and the Bach says afilu eina mageshes tzar v'keiv, because that's how the Bach understands that this Mishnah is only talking about such a scenario regardless of mageshes tzar v'keiv or not. The fact is we're makel by Rea Machmas Tashmish. And here understands it that it's like it's the same din as Mageshes Sar, like the Malam Padva explains about it. Malam Padva, we told you Malam Padva holds that as long that all the shiurim of the Mishnah are talking about when she is Mageshes Sar. If she's not Mageshes Sar, she's for sure Asur, she's Kechol Noshim. But Tzorich Lahavin. So he asks on the Alter Rebbe, if this is how he understands it, that as long as there is tsar, that we're more makel when it comes to Rea Machmas Tashmish Besula, Lama Kosav Sefkotin on Hei Hanal Vim Ein Lo Tsar Kla B'Shas Tashmish V'Shi Kechol Noshim V'Shikosav Ramo Mikol Mokem B'Tich Zayin Leilis B'Narav L'Alav B'Gedesh L'Asaf V'Saviyah Ein Lo Yisrael Ban Machmas Tashmish Gim Pol Mitzufim Sh'Lesivu Chachma Etam L'Mishan L'Tam Edam Atzmi L'Shavov Zayin Nakim Avaloi Lo Yisrael Al Bailo Oilomis. If the Mishnah, if the Alter Rebbe is going to follow the same as the Beis Yosef and that it's talking about that she feels pain, like that the Mishnah is talking about when she feels pain, why is it that the Alter Rebbe writes that even if she has no tsar at all, she is, even when she has no tsar and she's kechol anoshim, we're still not going to be machmer in the first few nights, or the first night. We don't count it for Rea Machmas Tashmish because of Chachmei Talmud Lo Yosifu. Shlefi ma shekosav l'mayli pli agdela ma shekosav Lo Yosifu Chachmei Talmud Chachmei Mishnah. It's a big question. Based on what he wrote earlier, what he tells you, Shlo Yosifu Chachmei Talmud Chachmei Mishnah, the Chachamim of the Talmud weren't going to be more machmer than the Chachamim of the Mishnah. Therefore, in the first night or the first 3 nights or whatever it is, we're not going to be machmir more, even if she has no pain. What's the connection of the Mishnah over here? Based on his understanding that he explains the Mishnah based on the way it seems like he understands it, it's based on when the Mishnah is talking about the first night or that, it's talking about that it is Tzava Cave. If she has no pain whatsoever, why is the first night not included in the cheshbon? If you're going to follow that it's midiraisa, not like the Alter Rebbe concludes, then for sure it's a question. Yeah, it should be midiraisa, it should be also after the first biyah. But even according to what Alter Rebbe himself writes, that only the midiraisa is only midirabanan were machmer. Shiur koshetich maka, and what's the definition of koshetich maka? We understood already. That as long as she doesn't stop seeing, the shiur zeh eina ela b'tziruf tzava cave. This shiur the Chachamim give could only apply if it comes together with tzava cave. So why does he give you a general rule, Alter Rebbe, that even if there is no tzava cave, still the first night is not included in the cheshbon? And what's shekol sheli poskel is more reaction that banana have fresh. Below magesh tzava cave leitiru yosim biyachas. And rather he explains that midrabanan we're only matir one bia if there is no tzar v'kev. Mageshes tzar v'kev v'tiru l'naro up to 4 nights. It says v'kol zeh, and Alter Rebbe wants to tell you kol zeh l'in adam atzmai. L'in yosel abaylo k'mo adar raisa. When it comes to adam atzmai, whether she's tired or tamei, we follow that we're machmer. When it comes to margesh savake, when it comes to loiser albayla, we go on deraisa that it stays until the makkah gets cured. Mishum hachi b'margeshes tzarvake v'ashur yad shtichya makkah kedin teira. Therefore, if she feels pain, we look at it as if that it depends on whether her makkah was cured or not. In the Mishnah, boy, she's not feeling any pain. Then we go back to the Mishnah and we say we follow the Mishnah that only the first night, or the first 3 nights, or the first 4 nights, or the first bia, whatever it is, depending on the situation. This whole idea doesn't make any sense. The Mikomo kamakushim mikomo emedes. Ma inyan din ha-Mishnah le'ina mageshes tzar v'ke'ev. What difference does this din of the Mishnah have to do with this discussion? The din of the Mishnah is talking about when the first night, the first 3 nights, and if she has no pain, then the whole discussion, whether the Mishnah says 1 night or 3 nights, whether we are machmer or not machmer, it's all irrelevant to here. If it's not magesh, it's irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? From deraisa, as long as there's a makkah, she's mutter. And what's the definition of makkah? It's not about tzavakev, it's about the blood coming out. Chachamim only said the first bia, and that's it, and then she has to go to mikveh. So what difference is there, magesh tzavakev and not magesh tzavakev? If you're going to go and say that we want to follow based on deraisa, it could be more than 1 bia. So he says, so therefore, the way to be able to understand Alter Rebbe is as follows: B'yishuv dvorav. The midiraisa, what's midiraisa? Bein margeshes, bein margeshes, shura shtich yamako. Midiraisa, as long as there's blood, whether she feels pain or she doesn't feel pain, she's considered mutter until the bleeding stops. Shtich yamako. V'chein din hamisha b'margeshes ben sheina margeshes. The Mishnah also makes no differentiation between mageshes and eina mageshes. The Mishnah is talking about that only first night, the first 3 nights, the first 4 nights. All this is only talking about l'inyan adam atzmai. All this is talking about whether she becomes tamei or she remains tired. Midiraisa, she's tired, misadam besulim, whether there is pain or there is no pain as long as she is bleeding. Midrabanon, the first time is when she sees blood, she becomes tamei, whether she feels pain or not. But she does not. But whether she becomes a surah the baila machmas tashmish is bichlal not mentioned in Gemara. Not yes pain, no pain. This whole discussion is not there. The whole thing, the Gemara is only talking about the dam, not about Rea Machmas Tashmish. Therefore, and over there it makes no difference. We see there is no difference. Tzar midiraisa or midirabanan, whether there is pain or there is no pain. Midiraisa should always be mutter, midirabanan only one time she yisem bi'achas. The kevon shekain, being that the Gemara does not discuss it, bichlal, how to define Rea Machmas Tashmish when it comes to this, when she feels pain, yesh raglayim l'dover, that over there we have raglayim l'dover, that it was mitzad this dam besulim ukmo advar Torah. Then we follow what it says in Torah. We go on deraisa that she's not usher as long as there is pain. But if she does not feel any pain, we don't have any proof that there is still dam besulim. Then we can't be making more than the Mishnah and say that it could continue leilam v'od. And now it makes sense. Alter Rebbe says exactly like the Bis Yosef. That's why the Alter Rebbe follows the B'Yosef. There's no the difference between the dam that whether she has to go to mikveh or maxmas tashmish. All the Alter Rebbe did was just explain the logic of the B'Yosef. Still, it could be mekel in certain scenarios more than the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells you is only midrabanan, not midiraisa. Midiraisa, all you need is you have to wait until the makkah cures itself completely. And this fits into what the B'Yosef tells you. The B'Yosef concludes that you can only be mekel if you feel pain. If you don't feel pain, you can't be mekel. When you feel pain, you're mekel more than the Mishnah. When you don't feel pain, you're not mekel at all like the Mishnah. The Mishnah is not relevant anymore to this. If it comes to Eina Margeshes at all, up to the most you could be mekel is like the Mishnah for the first night, for the first 4 nights. But if she's not margeshes, then you can't be mekel at all. So therefore, what it boils down to is that according to what the Alter Rebbe came to explain to you over here is whether the Mishnah tells you or what the Derais is or what the Derabanan is, the first night or the first few nights, or this whole discussion, whether there is pain, there is no pain, that whole discussion in the Gemara is not relevant to the question of Rea Maxmas Tashmish. The Gemara does not discuss Rea Maxmas Tashmish. The Gemara discusses only regarding the Tumas Adam. So when it comes to Tumas Adam, over there, if she feels pain or she doesn't feel pain, midiraisa, we follow until Chaysa Amaka. Midrabanan, only the first bia is mutter when she sees blood, whether there is pain or there is no pain. When it comes to Rea Maxmas Tashmish, the Gemara doesn't discuss it bichlal. So therefore, when it comes to Rea Maxmas Tashmish, we have to make the differentiation. That's when we make the differentiation. If she feels pain, we'll make her more than the Mishnah. If she doesn't feel pain, we can't be machmir more than the Mishnah, but we can't be makel more than the Mishnah either. That's where we're makel. If she doesn't feel pain, the most we're makel is the first 1 or 3 or 4, whatever the nights that are mentioned, based on she's a begeres, she rasa before, she didn't realize, she didn't see before. But otherwise, that's this whole discussion whether she sees pain or she doesn't see pain is not really relevant for the question of dam. Whether she tumas dam. The only relevance that it comes into is regarding dam, regarding loiser lebayla. And why is that? A simple reason. The Rea Maxmas Tashmish should consider it as a makkah, like it was explained. When it comes to a makkah, we have to look at it. If there is pain, there is blood, all these definitions. And by a makkah, we have a certain kula, which we said that the Rashba is mekel because by a makkah is different than anything else, than any other ones. Because a makkah, if you're going to make her asur every time, mitzat seeing blood, she's going to be asurei lames. By besulim, we're more machmir. We don't have that because it's something which is passing. When it comes to Maxmas Tashmish, there really is no difference between a makkah and and besulim, and both of them are exactly the same. So therefore, when it comes to besulim, if she has pain, it makes no difference how long the pain is there. She's still in the category of dam besulim and the makkah of dam besulim, and she's not asura lebayla if she sees 3 times Maxmas Tashmish. Once that pain is over and everything is over, then we go back to the Mishnah and we say only the first 1 or 2 or 3, whatever number it was based on the Mishnah, that's the only time that we could be machmir. Kuf Pei Aleph will be the Kuf Tzadik Aleph will be the next one.